Hello. I love Super Nintendo. I eat, sleep and live everything SNES. I love Super Nintendo. Now, Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 on the Super Nintendo became huge hits. They catapulted Donkey Kong's status so that he will become a legend among Nintendo characters everywhere. Metroid and Zelda had highly successful games on the Super Nintendo. However, neither of them would make another appearance on the system. Mario had become Nintendo's puppet, appearing in such educational games as Mario is Missing, Mario's Time Machine, and a series of Mario games for early years to help teach them numbers, letters, and the like. Are they all as bad as they sound? Yes, but that's to come. Back to Donkey Kong then. It fell on the Great Ape to carry the Super Nintendo into the new era, and so when a third game was released in 1996, it came as no surprise. Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. The gameplay is largely similar to the first two games. A side-scrolling platformer that combines action, puzzle elements and banana collecting. A lot of the bonus features make an appearance from the previous game as well. The story, I think, goes a little bit like this. Dixie Kong wakes up one morning to find that Donkey and Diddy Kong have gone missing on a fishing trip. Joined by her baby cousin Kiddy Kong, she sets off across Donkey Kong Island to try and locate them. First things first, can I just say how fantastic it is to have a strong character back in this game. You may remember from my Donkey Kong 2 review that I stated the problem was that Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong were far too similar, so the ability to swap between the characters was kind of pointless. Well, I don't know if this was a big complaint when Donkey Kong Country 2 came out, but Nintendo have obviously taken it into consideration and introduced Kiddy Kong, a much stronger but slower character. What's better is that it feels like it has been taken one step further in the game, and you feel that actual parts would be impossible playing as a certain character. Well done, Rare. You done good. Once again, you can switch between both characters whenever you need to. I play a lot of the game as Dixie, because she's fast, and you need to be at certain times. However, Kiddy has his own usefulness as well. He can kill most enemies and can be thrown onto damaged walls and floors to open up new areas. There are also a lot more characters to play as in this game. Squitter the Spider, Squawks the Parrot and Ongar the Swordfish have been joined by Ellie, an elephant that shoots water, and Parry, a pointless bird that supposedly collects out-of-reach items for you or something. Other reoccurring characters include Wrinkly Kong, who saves your game, and Funky Kong, who builds you new vessels to explore the island on. Swanky Kong is also back and allows you to play mini-games, which are way more fun than they probably should be. As with the previous game, there is a lot of concentration on bonus areas and hidden levels. Each level in Donkey Kong Country 3 has at least 2 bonus areas to find. You will require a lot of time and patience to find them all. Unfortunately, I tend to lack both, and so I'm nowhere near reaching that coveted 103% that many fans boast. Oh well. All of the recognised bonuses are back. Collecting coins, bashing baddies and grabbing a certain number of stars in bonus rounds reward you with tokens. The target at the end of each level has been removed, but it's not something that you particularly miss. And, of course, the Kong letters still appear throughout the game. Whew, thank goodness for that. Being the third game in the series, you wouldn't expect much innovation from Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. After all, The first two games were so popular that a safe bet would be to recycle the gameplay and style. And that is what has happened on the most part. However, it would be unfair not to pay homage to the innovations that have taken place through this game. Being chased by a giant buzzsaw is just one example of the innovative spirit that the developers had. One level in particular really displays what the developers were trying to accomplish. In this level you have to make your way through some air ducts or something. However, in a true twist to the tale, there is low gravity, much like the game Low G-Man on the NES. You have much more of a float to your jump, and you can be forgiven for thinking that this makes the level easier. Now, I have the exact same complaint that I had for the second game. Where is Donkey Kong? It's a Donkey Kong Country game. Donkey Kong Country. His name appears on the game cart, the instruction manual, and the box. Donkey Kong. If you're going to use his name, he needs to appear. It's not the first time Nintendo have done it either. The biggest culprit. Mario is missing. Use names like Mario, you expect him to be in the game. You expect to be able to play as him. Now, this game gets away with it slightly better than Donkey Kong, because at least this one says Mario is missing, so you expect him to be missing. However, Donkey Kong Country has no excuse. The country's called after Donkey Kong. Where is he? Why is he not in his own country? If I had a country named after me, I would be there all the time. Super Nintendo Fanboyopolis. I'd spend my entire life there. Now, in all seriousness, this game does not suffer as much as Donkey Kong Country 2, because at least they introduced Kiddy Kong, who is very similar to Donkey Kong in the way that he moves. He's slow, but very powerful. However, I stand by my point. If you're going to use the name Donkey Kong, we expect to see him. It's amazing that Donkey Kong became so popular through these games when he wasn't in them. It would be like playing a Legend of Zelda game as this guy, or seeing Patrick Stewart as the playable character in the new Metroid game. Actually, never mind, that would be an awesome game.
No! No!
Wow. Now, the graphics. They're good. They're very good. My problem is, in comparison to the first two games, they just don't feel as crisp. They're still very good, but it feels like we've taken a step back from the previous two games. The graphics almost seem a little fuzzy in parts of the game. This is not to say they aren't impressive, because the game is over 15 years old, and there are some points that blow me away. This level, for example, is beautiful. You keep hopping back and forth between the background and the foreground, and the waterfall effects are impressive. But generally, I haven't felt as amazed by the look of this game as I did in the previous game. And that is my biggest complaint of this game. It feels like everything has taken a step back from the progress that was made in Donkey Kong Country 2. Whereas Diddy's Conquest felt like a direct continuation of the story from the first game, this one is definitely its own separate story. And although that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it feels like we've missed out on all the progress that was made over the first two games. This game has almost become too simple. Whereas collecting the DK coins in the second game, for example, was a challenge, and therefore rewarding when you got one, this game hides them in plain sight, and it doesn't take a huge challenge to work out how to collect them. I think that the developers were trying to bring children back into the franchise after the difficulty settings on Donkey Kong Country 2. It was just far too difficult. However, they've gone far too simple this time. They've alienated a lot of fans who enjoyed the first two games. Just check any website for them and you'll hear a lot of the same thing. Donkey Kong Country 3 came out in 1996. The Ultra 64 had already been released in some countries and was the new thing. Yes. Yeah. I know, we hate it, but you tell people to buy something and, well, they're stupid, they'll buy it. I mean, look how many years X Factor has reached #1 for the Christmas charts. You tell somebody to buy something and they'll buy it. You didn't think that X Factor sold lots of singles because it was good music, right? Oh, you did. Right. That's the type of people watching my reviews, is it? You're not the same kind of person who thinks that Power Rangers Turbo was a step in the right direction, are you? One of the biggest downfalls of Donkey Kong Country 3 was that it was sold as a Donkey Kong Country game. Unless it was going to be absolutely amazing, Donkey Kong Country 3 was going to fail, because it was always going to be compared to the first two games that were incredible. As a standalone game, it's really good, but a lot of fans compare it to the first two, naturally, and it just doesn't hold water. What can you say? Having not been a huge Donkey Kong fan when I was a kid, the game doesn't offend me in the way that it does some fans. It is a shame that this game seems to have gone backwards in the breakthroughs that were made in the first two games. However, as I said before, as a standalone game, it's really good. Now, when trying to give this game a final score, it's going to be tough, because I don't want to count out the first two. However, it seems unfair to judge it on its predecessors. What I've decided to do is I have decided to count this as a standalone game and not compare it too harshly to the first two when giving it its final review. As a standalone game, it is not as good as Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong Country 2, but it is still a very, very good game. I have decided to give this game 90%, which is a fantastic score, and it's a really good game. If you get the chance, pick it up. It's not cheap, but then none of the Donkey Kong countries are particularly, because they are so good. However, see what you can find, pick it up, treat it as a standalone game, maybe even play it before the first two. It doesn't really matter in terms of storyline, it's entirely up to you. So, judge for yourself, that's what I always say. Gives me a bit of a cop-out. Never mind. Well, that's the Donkey Kong review medley over. Phew, easy, eh? I need to lie down. So, for those of you who are going to get Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Nintendo Wii, I hope that it's everything you expect, everything that you hope it to be. Me? Nah. I've still got a lot more games to get through.
And he lived on and on and on. It's the return of Donkey Kong, yeah. I clap my hands up in the air sometimes. Thank you, Retro and Nintendo. 100 bananas for an extra life, yeah.